Larry back there? Yeah, there's his hat. Are you coming in, Peggy? No? Okay. You coming in? Can you let everybody know that we're starting? Can you turn that?
This is Spirit speaking. Did you hear your ding?
Yeah, I love the ding. Ding, 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 ding.
Ding and ding.
I don't know about you. Do you ever have days where you seem to get a lot of dings? And actually, we have a little texting thing. I'm in sales, and our team, when people have a sale, we send it out on, we call it the ding list. So ding means lots to me now. Thank you so much, Paul, for being here today.
It's an honor.
Stay back here.
Doing this for us. And for those of you that have experienced Paul today for the first time, I'm sure that's a part of the reason why you decided to stay. We have a jar for your love offering, and as always with Unity of London, it's a suggested love offering. We ask that you give what you can, and we like to honor the time and the space and
Sorry, I wanted to sit
anything that
beside
people give out. But we don't
I
want
can
to
move back a
turn
bit.
away. So we're blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take it away, Paul.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for being here today. I kind of knew that today would be special in the sense that whoever was meant to be here would be here. So some of you are going to hear some repeated information if you've been here before. And if I may, I just sort of start is I know that I wanted to take us on a sort of an emotional inward journey. Can you hear me okay?
Just a little up, but just to
Yeah, sure. I actually had a lot out of it, but is this better? Yeah.
Do you want to move, Margaret? Well, it's going to do the same grid, everything.
Yeah, I know, I'm sort of, I have to have this
Nobody
screen.
can. So that's just what
Yeah.
it is.
We're okay? Okay, so just going back to sort of, my intention really today is to go through an emotional journey within. That's really what I want to do today. So that really is what this workshop is about. I also want to talk about, really ultimately, I think just the way that things work following your heart. And I think oftentimes we, as human beings, have been traumatized by being a human being. And I think that this path that I've sort of chosen has been decided long ago, before 2011, but my life changed in 2011. So if you know my story, my father took his own life on March the 6th of 2011. It changed my life in a way that I had never anticipated my life would change. And it is sort of, my life is sort of divided into that moment in time before and after. And so we're almost entering into our 9 years later, next year into 2020. So I look at my life sort of now as I understood. I did a life review in 2011 with God, and I had a moment where God came to me on March the 6th in sort of the hardest time of my life, in front of the bathroom mirror, which maybe sounds funny. But I remember it was the day that my father died, and it was the most beautiful morning I've ever had in my life that turned into the most tragic sort of moment of my life. And I sort of was confused by this, and I went back and did a life review for the first few months after my dad died. And I went back to sort of the first two cells that made me me. And I've always had an inner voice. It's very strong, very guided, and very much with God. I realize this more now than I did, pre-2011. But I think that oftentimes we as human beings don't really listen to that inner voice, and it's interesting that we talked about this today, that ding, because I've had it all my life, but it's a lot more than a ding for me. It's a really loud voice that way. And in 2011, I started following it, which was very much in my despair and in grief. It's very interesting when I look at it now, because I've come a long way out of that hurricane, let's call it, in the center of that storm. And what I had promised myself to do is to follow God in a way that I've never followed God before from my heart. And I was shown basically that, quite frankly, the gates of heaven are through your heart, very simply. And it's our job to open them with our love. Our heart is our North Star. You follow it. It will guide your soul where it needs to go, I guarantee you. And that's where synchronicity starts to sort of come in and amplify things that you couldn't plan if you tried. I do want to share with you, I'm very much into messages and signs. I'm very intuitive in this. So my number for Louise Hay is 108. I want to say this today because on my speedometer today, when I got into Unity's parking lot, my number was 108. I cleared it not that long ago. This number is very important to me because her birthday was on October the 8th. And I sang the song that I sang for you today at her last birthday on Earth, in front of 2,000 people, in front of the world that was live streamed. And that song, My Heart, was played. And I think it's really interesting that, where is Kathy? There you are. And I had so much coming through today when I was singing that song. And I really wanted to tell you thank you, because what you shared is sort of, I had this flashback of all the things that I've done for 9 years following my heart, getting to this moment with you today. And I follow wherever that goes, and I don't really know what's happening like Louise. We don't really know what's going to happen next. But if we follow our heart, something magical starts to happen, and it's where miracles start to manifest. And I sort of want to talk about manifestation before I even begin singing, because I think it's interesting how faith is the evidence of the things unseen, but known in the heart. And you know something is there, but you don't really know how to put words to it. And it's interesting after all these years, when you do what I do, people send you things from all over the world. I brought 2 of them just to show you what can manifest from faith. These 2 crystals are a set of many that were formed because of my music. One has a heart inside of it. This man from Spain made these crystals inspired by my music. This is a heart in the center of this crystal with basically an energy field around it. And I just think it's really interesting when you have a song that can make something like this become real. And it's interesting that this is that's from my album, My Heart, which is the song I sang for you with Louise Hay, brought that. And this is actually a piece dove, basically in this, from my album, Seeds of Peace. And when somebody makes a crystal, I don't know, like when you see something come into manifestation as a result of your heart and what your heart can create, it's endless. And I think we're starting as a human race, let's call it, because there's really only one race, the human race right now on Earth. And I think that it's important to really acknowledge that your heart is more powerful than you will ever realize until you start exercising love in action. And I think until we sort of start saying this out loud, I really believe that we're really not even touching the surface of what's possible. And if I can do what I do, I'm just being really free. I was figuring out how to be here. And the reality is that I learned something recently, not too long ago, that this situation is really because of God. It's not about me. And that's the big truth here. This is not about me. And I think a lot of famous people are obsessed with this stage, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it's been really hard to hit a stage, and also by myself. You know, it's a big space. I always call this stage a portal. I'm a very sensitive, hypersensitive person, which is my gift. So when energy comes at me, I like to just swing it back to all of you. You are actually why I'm here. It's not about me, and it's about God. So, now that we've said that, what I want to do is I want to sort of start, I've had this vision of what I'm doing in this space today, and I'm doing this next week on Saturday in Toronto. And I'm going to basically start with a song that I feel very guided to start with, and it's faith. Because without faith, it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it cannot grow. And I know this to be very true. So I have 7 albums. I once didn't think I could write or sing music. Kind of funny. But faith is the evidence again of the things unseen but known in the heart. And so I'm going to start singing a song with faith, and this is the first part of the layer I want to just dive in. I want to give you permission not to have to clap today. That's not what this is about. I don't need your approval that way. And I also want you to feel the nectar after a song is sung, so you feel there's something that we create with our hearts in the room that we can do together, that we can't do alone. So I'm going to just ask you to just sort of be willing to sort of maybe close your eyes and go inside of yourself. And it's so funny, it's 12:22 exactly, 2:22. I didn't even know that clock was there. Okay, so this is faith, and just take a deep breath within your nose, and out through your mouth, and again through your nose, and out through your mouth. And one word even deeper, and out through your mouth.
After all God will take care of the rest. Oh, I am my soul. I am my beautiful heart. I am my life spirit now, and I want to thank you, God, for making me whole. And just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Beautiful. Okay. So now that we've sort of started with faith, I then wanted to move into self-worth. And I think self-worth is something that is so misunderstood. And I want to really talk about self-worth because I think that it's where we accept the fact that we are divine. And I think until you do that, I don't think you can really embrace and empower yourself to be whole. And I think life is about becoming whole and being a vessel that is clean, clear, and really, quite frankly, I'm going to say this out loud too, is that God dwells within you as you. It's really that simple. I don't think it's complicated. God dwells within me as me. And we serve this space that is within ourselves with self-worth. And that's where we accept ourselves for all that we are. And I think that we're perfect at being imperfect, personally. And I think that's sort of when the personality serves the soul. We've heard that before. So I want to talk about self-worth. And I've been guided to share with you some words that changed my life. And I've never done this before at any event I've ever shared sort of the stage with. And I think these words are really important. And I'm going to explain how this worked and what happened. So Oprah Winfrey, we all know her, she was basically ending the Oprah Winfrey show. I just want to say she never missed one day of work in 25 years. Pretty amazing woman. And my father died again on March the 6th, so as we know, the season of the television sort of series sort of ends pretty much this spring. So she was winding up this 25-year run of really interesting TV, quite frankly. And I had my experience with God and the suicide of my father, and I was very lost that summer. I didn't know what to do, and God's message to me was really, really simple. You're not unique. Now, I was very sort of confused by this message. Everyone has been through death. You are not unique. You are built to be able to handle this. Go within. Really simple. And so as Oprah ended her show, in my lost confusion in my prayer and meditation space every single day playing music, I was very much interested in Oprah's new network, which was OWN. She had a television series that is still one of my favorites. She got scared, I know, because the ratings weren't great. And she sort of changed everything. But this is what happened for me. I clung to her new network like, I don't even know how to explain it. I needed it, let's just say that. And she did something that I've never heard Oprah do. She shared parts of her life she's never shared on a masterclass series that changed my life. It was the only one that's 2 parts, so she actually had such a big story, she decided to take 2 parts and share some words. When you go through grief, if anyone's ever been there, you don't sleep the same way. Your sleep changes. So I would get up, I knew that when I would sleep I needed it, and I knew my body would give me what I needed in sleep. So I remember getting up early in the morning, probably in the 2 to 3 a.m. sort of range, and I just would watch OWN programs. And I had taped this one, or my mom did, I'm not sure my mom's here, thank God. These words are so beautiful because I know they came from God in exactly the moment when I needed them. So these are Oprah's words, not mine. The more centered I am, the more I see what a miracle my life is. Everybody has a story. When you learn, teach, use your life as a class. Yellow brick road of blessings enriched my life beyond measure. To do what I do, am what I am, live where I live, is nothing short of a miracle. I grew up believing Jesus was my daddy, and that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Given to you by your grace of God, you become what you believe, exactly what you believe. Dream big dreams. Understanding what God means to be a citizen of the universe expanded my view of what it means to be a citizen of the universe. To be a part of the energy field that is omnipotent, unlimited power, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing in all things, something greater than myself. Confidence comes from this very belief, that I am a part of that, and that that is also a part of me. You are here for a reason. How you master your life is to understand that you are co-creating that life with the ultimate creator. Not understanding that puts you at your own pitiful, meager little will. Everything when left up to just simply you is impossible without the help of God. You cannot do it. You cannot survive in this world by yourself. You're not big enough to do it. Nobody is big enough to do it alone. You have to understand that your very presence here as a human being on earth came from something greater than you. And not just that your parents wanted to have a child. The fact that that egg was hit by that particular little sperm in that moment, and you were created. Wow. How amazing is that? And you're all that miracle. Of all the different choices that had to happen in order for you to be here now, what a celebration it is. So when you recognize the mystery of that creation, all the circumstances that had to configure and reconfigure themselves, all the questions that we do not have answers to, you must know this. The fact that I am here matters. The fact that you are here matters. This is no accident. None of us are accidents. I think so much of how you are raised and how you are treated in the world is how you in turn want to treat other people. You are worthy. You are going to have to take care of yourself. This made me create an imaginary angel to protect me in the night. This was because I was not able or allowed to come inside. I had to sleep on the porch because of Miss Miller. I'm going to stop here just to explain the context. Oprah Winfrey was raised by her grandmother up until the age of 7, I think, if memory serves me correctly. And then what happened is she had to go and live with her mother. Her mother lived with Miss Miller as basically a live-in maid. And her mother had no choice at this time to provide for her children, and she had other children in this house as well. And Miss Miller thought Oprah Winfrey's skin was too dark. She made her sleep outside. I guarantee you there was an angel with her every single night when she slept on that porch. I could bawl my eyes out right now just saying this, but I'm not going to. I just think that the fact that Oprah can be who she is, having been sleeping outside, to have experienced the horrendousness of that, and to still do what she's done, is nothing short of God in action, period. So, this moment when I heard this story, I couldn't stop watching this over and over and over again. These words just penetrated and washed me. So, she ended with this: I understand what it is like to be born unwanted because of being pregnant and losing my baby at 14 years old. I didn't know that she had that happen. Because you are here and you made it, you are worthy. You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy. I consider myself to be a teacher in everything I've ever done. Intention, what can I teach? What can I learn? And how can I use myself as a vessel for something bigger? How can I touch a nerve? How can I bring a piece of light, a piece of information that allows someone that is watching or listening to see themselves in a light or a space that allows them to open up? Passion, vision, hope, spiritual worth and value to myself and to the universe. These words were literally a godsend in a time where I needed to embrace what had happened. It's how I got here to you. And I want to just talk about this divine synchronicity that can happen. It's when you follow your heart, miracles happen. And I'm going to basically sing to our self-worth again. I'm going to repeat the song I already sang today, because I think it's important. After saying this, I want to expand the self-worth. So this is worthy. Again, this is from, I just want to share with you too, I recorded this in Toronto
when I sing this song, I'm singing it with basically a recording that I had live in the beaches of Toronto, and I'm singing this space with today because that worth from that moment to today is very strong. The fact that I got here after that, when I recorded this actually in 2012 to now, and I will sing with that track because I think that there's a power in that actually. So here is Worthy Again. Just take a deep breath in and feel free to close your eyes. And really feel the worth for yourself as this exercise here. Just take a deep breath in again.
Thank you for loving every square inch of my heart. Thank you for blessing me and letting me know I'm worthy of love and letting my joy come to life. The years go by and I try to be present in God, oh God's great design, and take the ones that I love on the journey through my life, and share the corners of my thankful heart. Patches of my heart bear the scars, childhood memories inside our yards, being lost at sea in the turbulent waters of our dreams, seeing the shoreline of lights after witnessing the darkness within life. Oh, you are worthy of love. You are worthy of your dreams. You are worthy of everything you hold in your soul. You are worthy of it all. 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 You are worthy of it Just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Okay, so now that we know we have faith and now that we know that we're worthy, we're going to move on now. And I just want to say that we're going to start flowing a little bit faster now. So we've sort of
dove deeply. And I want to just share with you, the longest journey one will ever take is from the head to the heart. This is one of those things that once you sort of get it, you're like, oh, I was living here, and I want to live here, right? And so I wrote a song, essentially just to be a guided way for us to remember, to go from our head to our heart. When I started writing music, I knew that I wanted to write music with God that was all about the first person feeling, sort of the first person narrative from the inside out. So all of my music is sort of designed very specifically with that. I also want to say that music is a sacred technology. It's been used in every way you can think of to honor life, actually. And I want to say that vibrations, vibrations are a big deal. I'm just going to share this quick piece of information that was so cool. I was just in France. Does anyone know the HeartMath Institute? It's a really cool moment for me. Through my music, I met the CEO of HeartMath Institute, and he was actually in France with me, in the south of France, and I was there to sing. They flew me there to sing in France. So I said yes, and I went. And I met him and introduced him to some people in France, which is sort of an interesting part, because I think that we're bridges to connect love together, so it expands, pollinated love, right? So I had him come, and I was so grateful to meet him in person because he taught me something. So HeartMath Institute, for those that don't know, is actually from Stanford University in the States. And it's about roughly 30 years of data research on the heart science, and what it really means. First of all, the thing that I learned that I think is so cool is that the heart actually built the brain. It pumped the brain to life, and they've actually learned that there's heart cells that have brain cells actually still there in the heart. Kind of interesting. But the heart had to pump the brain to life, and then the brain built the body. The heart was first. Kind of interesting, right? The other thing that he shared with me is that we have chemicals that are released, 1,400 chemicals. 1,400 good chemicals to keep us healthy are released when we're in love. Every single time we feel love, 1,400 chemicals are released. What's interesting is that when we're not in love, 1,400 chemicals that are not good for us are released. That's hate, all of those things. We won't even go there, right? So we'll focus on this love. But this love thing that's so interesting, there was a couple of medical doctors in the audience. This one medical doctor agreed to have her heart put on the monitor in front of everyone in that room. And as he sort of talked about it, so this device basically does essentially the heartbeat, which is very much spiky, right? And this was very interesting because he shared with me that they did this actually when they first started HeartMath work in Stanford. And these cardiac doctors that are specialists, really renowned specialists, that know everything about the heart, apparently, forgot one thing, that it can actually change into arcs. This is so interesting because it's happened right before my eyes. So this doctor, who's a medical doctor, a specialist, put this monitor on her finger in front of me, in front of this whole room of people, and her heart was like with traditional spikes. The whole room went into what's called heart coherence, which is just focusing on love together, going from their head to the heart. And the brain sort of nuance of the heart started to actually arc. And it was like this. The heart monitor is totally different when you are in love. And it's very interesting because when the CEO shared this story, when this cardio specialist, heart surgeon specialist, sort of was first invited to look at this data that we saw as well, because it happens every time when you're in heart coherence. He thought he was crazy, and he was like, there's no way that can happen, until he saw it with his own eyes. And it's interesting because this is very smart, very smart. So I wrote a song a long time ago now, when I think about it, which is Head to Heart. So I just invite you to just share this journey into this space from your head to your heart together. And again, just take a deep breath in and out.
Oh, go from your head into your heart and soften up with all your love.
mountains and all the trees and the flowers and the beautiful bumblebees. This world with all your love, and see how love expands with love. For you were made from the same thing as all the planets and all the stars and the mountains and all the trees and the flowers and the beautiful bumblebees. Oh, I know this world can be heaven's harmony. Let's make love with each other. Let's love humanity. Let's share our hearts and our holy souls. For you were made from the same thing as all the planets and the stars and the mountains and all the trees and the flowers and the beautiful bumblebees.
Just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Beautiful. Okay. So that is head to heart. So I want to just sort of say, now that we've sort of started again with faith, with then self-worth, and then now where we understand the heart, I've been shown that this is the fifth dimension. I don't know if anyone's heard this. Yes? I don't think it's news to maybe all of you, but some of you. This is what I feel is the fifth dimension. And I think we're rising up and ascending into the fifth dimension more and more, faster and faster. If you dig into what's going on in the world, I have found from what I do, there's two worlds going on. It's really not that hard when you start looking. I see it every day when I'm at an event that's based on love. I have seen more fifth dimensional spaces than maybe most of you in the room. I don't know, maybe out in the world, but I think we have fifth dimension here too, last time I checked. And I think it's up to us to sort of create that. So I wanted to just mention that I feel that the heart is the fifth dimension, and I think we're actually ascending to be our highest self and manifest. This is what I feel. This is my belief. And I think through God and with God, when we become the vessel again, God dwells within you as you. This is from Eat, Pray, Love. Just saying. I didn't say that. Elizabeth Gilbert did. And I have to say, I just watched this the other day and I saw things in that because I look at the world and I experience it from my heart now. I hear different words. It's like everything's amplified now. And I look at life as like a microphone. You put energy out into the world and it comes back to you. I'm realizing this through what I do very clearly, like these crystals, just saying, like these albums. And I think what's interesting is more and more the way that we share and sort of give words and experience to this, I think we're starting to see our evolution leaping forward. This is how I feel. So these two worlds that are going on, I know lots of light workers around the world now. This is not a solo mission. We're here together to hold hands. That's how love happens, right? And it's interesting because in that song I just wrote, you had chosen Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou. She's one of my greatest spiritual teachers for me. And you picked her today. And I know that I wrote that song in reflection. She's with me a lot in my work. And
I just want to honor you for choosing her because she's a very beautiful gift. If anybody wants to dig into Maya, she will teach you some things.
Yeah.
Just saying. So anyways.
And you will get it.
Yes, you will get it. And most of you probably already know anyways. Maya's amazing. Okay, so I wanted to just sort of talk about, just quickly sort of explain Louise Hay, because I have to take a moment here for Louise, okay? So I had this moment where in 2012, Corey's mother was diagnosed with cancer. So we flew, I was like, are you kidding me, God? You know, really? Like, we're just a year after my dad's suicide, like, come on. You know, me, how dare you, right? So anyways, we flew to Boston to support her for 1 month. And it was really scary, and we didn't know what would happen or what would be, you know, sort of the circumstance or scenario. Very awkward, but we knew that we just needed to go and be there to support her. So long story short, we would go for walks every day, and nature was what healed me, by the way. I just want to say that. Nature was where I found my healing. Every day we'd go for walks and just sort of commune with the trees, like just feel nature. And if that was happening, it meant that I was going to be okay, kind of thing, right? And I'll never forget this. So one day in the middle of the time that we were there, we went to basically the Boston sort of center, which is the Prue, which is like a shopping mall. And Corey loves cologne, so he was very interested in Jo Malone cologne. Does anyone know Jo Malone? There's like 100 fragrances. When you go to their counter, it's like crazy fragrance. So we went there and we met this man. Through Corey's passion, we met this man. And he was so nice to us. He gave us every single sample that you could get of Jo Malone cologne. I was so touched by him. He even mixed samples of fragrances that he liked mixing together, so we came up with more than Jo Malone. So anyways, this was a really beautiful moment for us, and one of the things that I'm always surprised by is when I call media to share a story or, you know, a press piece that might be positive, I'm always fascinated that they say, to my sort of shock, when I ask, do you know Louise Hay? The answer is usually no. And I'm thinking, that's interesting. And I just want to say, do you know that there's 65 million copies of her book sold? I just wanted to say that. So add a lot more million just to that one. So
I'll
never
never
stops.
trust the internet again.
So I say this to you because I want to say I once didn't know who Louise Hay was. So I don't want to sort of judge that either. So I'm just saying that out loud. And in 2012, I didn't know who she was. And this man at this Jo Malone counter, this is a fascinating story. So when we got our fragrances, I left, and one of the things that I was guided to do when I first started music is that I would go and buy 100 CDs at Staples, by the way, and I would burn them on my MacBook Pro, and I would make 100 CDs with labels, and I did it took a long time, let's just say that, to do that, like days to do 100, okay? So I did that faithfully, and I would give them out to people for free. I knew my heart knew when to give a CD. It was very awkward when I started, and it still was, you know, getting sort of to that space to go like, my heart said to give this to you. But I had this call after we left that man to give him my CD. And I took Corey, you know, aside and just said, you know, I need to get a CD, just give me a minute. So I went back to him and I gave him my CD and I said, you know, my dad took his own life in 2011 and my heart said to give you this. I wrote this music and I hope you like it. And he asked me again, do you know Louise Hay? And I said no. And I didn't really connect a dot, I guess. But I want to share with you this story because I think it's so fascinating. So when I went away from that counter, we went into Barnes & Noble next door to this Saks Fifth Avenue, I think it was. And we went into the bookstore, and in the bookstore, I used to just go to books, and I knew which one I needed, exactly which one I needed. And I pulled up this book and read it on the spot. And I think this is so interesting. So it's Masaru Emoto, Dr. Emoto, Messages from Water and the Universe. It's the book. And I read the whole book on the spot, and it's all about how water responds to music, and it becomes whole and a perfect snow formation crystal. All perfect. So they've taken water from like Hiroshima and like things, and exposed it to love-based music, and the crystal heals. Very interesting. And at the back of this book, and right next door to this man, I'm looking at who wrote it, And I look at the picture, there's a water crystal and this woman, and it's Louise Hay. And I sort of went like, oh my God. And I share this story with you because it's crazy that the song I sang for you was used at her last birthday on Earth in front of 2,000 people. And Louise Hay, who I didn't know at one point, and a miracle happened where I got to sing my song in front of 2,000 people for the last birthday she had on Earth. And one of the things I wanted to share with you today, do you know that I'm receiving some of her ashes? Yeah, that's something that is happening. And I'm very good friends with the woman that actually, she calls herself and told Louise to call her, this is her end-of-life midwife. And Louise actually transitioned to my music, which is a pretty big thing, actually. To not know her, have faith, sing songs, and then that happened. And again, my speedometer today was 108, just saying. And I know very much that this song, I had a vision when I was about 16 that I would write a quantum heart love song, and that song that I sang for you today is actually my heart. So I'm going to sing that for you. And this is what was used for her birthday. So. Just take a deep breath in again. And we're going to just really honor our heart now for the smart heart it is.
in your
And just take a deep breath in. And I think that that's called heart coherence. So that's really beautiful. So thank you for the gift of sharing that today with each other. So, moving on now. I think the biggest thing, I feel, okay, so I go by my guidance here. So I want to ask if anybody wants to speak right now. Does anybody feel like saying anything or sharing anything? No pressure either if you don't want to. Okay. I have a microphone. Does anybody want to share anything?
I do.
Yes. I think that the room is important to bring together in a moment like this.
The first time I heard about Louise Hayes was through my mother, who's passed away. I'm Mexican,
Yeah.
and we just had the Day of the Dead.
Yes. All Souls Day, and then, yeah, it's a big deal.
And I just feel like, as soon as I sat here, I could just feel my mother.
This is what happens. So, I
And
love
my mother, not just that, but the song you sang about the head with the heart. My mom used to say, "Quiencito, I love your head, but your heart, I want to see your heart." It is like, oh, I'm just so touched.
That's beautiful. And I think that when you say that too, what I have had happen, I'm going to just share. So I'm a medium. When we have the veil thin, it's become thin when we're in love. So when we're higher self, we actually are more receptive to the other side. So this is the thing that we're starting to learn, I think. So your mother's with us, like so through the veil, clear as day. Yeah. So thank you.
And we all knew like her mother.
Yes, did you? Wow. So she came here. Wow. What's her name again?
Blanca.
Blanca.
Her name was Blanca.
How long ago did she transition?
October 26, 2009.
2009. It's a big journey. But I think that the woman that took care of Louise always calls them tethers. We have tethers to the other side too. And that's the beauty of, like, you know, that's how we sort of expand. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed everything. I didn't want to break the whole range
Oh,
of
yeah.
beauty, but yeah, everybody loves the birds and the bees, but 70% of the bees are gone, and almost everything's extinct. Like, how do we deal with that? How do you deal with it?
Well,
You know?
I think the first thing is to say it. I think it's to acknowledge it. I do think that, you know, I think the bees are sort of a great metaphor too of pollination for us. Jack and Teresa owned an orchard. You know how important bees are, right?
Are they gone?
They're not gone. We have lots of bees. But I do think that we can do things to educate ourselves on what we can do about it. And I think knowledge is power, and we have to remember we're powerful beings. We have intelligence, emotional intelligence, we have spiritual intelligence, and we use our intelligence to fix that problem. And you become action in that intelligence, because talking is wonderful, but then you have to take action. So I think that the thing to do is to say it first that you did, and you take action. And like anything with action comes change.
Well, as far as hope goes, I mean, as far as our own destruction and extinction of the planet, well, me personally, just this quantum field that, like you're saying, healing the water. So that's my only hope, is that there is this kind of revival of consciousness where you can heal. And,
Absolutely. Alia just
you know,
shared with Louise, just to touch on that. Alia was just with me at a conference. I invited her to come to a Heal Your Life class training, and I surprised the class just in Toronto with Alia at that event. And she talked about Louise and how Louise said that it's very important to remember that all is well, all shall always be well, and that we are divinely in that space. And until you can do that, you can't action it the way that you need to.
well, I'll just give you an example. Like, so you don't want to drink the water, so everybody buys bottles of water because the water's so dirty. At the same time, it's catch your tail kind of thing, because the plastic is big part of what's killing everything. So individual people want their clean water. I'm gonna buy a bottle, because I can't do anything. And who cares that we're not getting clean water coming out of our tap? God only knows why the government can't do that. So it's like this kind of, I'm gonna protect myself and drink bottled water, but at the same time, it's not protecting yourself. It's like killing the whole planet. So there's this kind of an ego and this lost connection from the whole, the ecosystem, where buying bottled water is not the answer.
I don't have all the answers. The reality is I don't, and I think we're living in a really interesting time for us to figure it out. And I think we can figure it out though. That's my answer. I really believe that. And if you go out and see what's going on in the world, there are plenty of people trying to do that. And I would get behind them and support them. That's what I would do. And I think doing that's where we're at. And I think that if you dig into what's going on in the world, because I've seen a lot of people doing things about water and the earth, in many people, and I believe that we are capable of changing this around.
I know activists in London who are trying to get the fluoride out of the water here in London, and they've been trying for years and they gave up. Like just something simple, like take fluoride out of their water, which, as you know, Hitler used it to kill people, and it's apparently collects on the pineal gland and has a real dumbing effect on people. And people in North America do not have less cavities than the rest of the world because they've got fluoride in their water. So, like, well, this is local.
Yeah. Well, we can, I think the first thing is to figure out where you're at with things, and I don't have all the answers. And
well, you're right.
I know what you're saying,
and that's what I think, like, what's left for me, to become a political activist. I've started writing songs, but,
well, you have a fire in you, and I would say use it to do something.
Well, I think I'm going to enjoy. I think I'm going to suffer a lot of sanity to get where I want to go. So.
Yeah, I know it's.
I agree that.
No, that's the answer.
Minimizing the plastic.
No, it's not about that. We should be able to. Our water should be clean.
Your water is clean. It just has fluoride in it. I was anyway, he would say, look, we put a lot of money into making your water clean.
Yeah.
Don't buy bottled water. The water is clean, except for the fluoride, really clean. And we are the government.
Yeah, but this is Canada.
Okay. Well, that's like.
Just wanted to say thank you for what you're sharing today and what you are just emitting. I have listened to you since you first arrived last year, and I have not stopped thinking about, and I play, when I travel to Tobermory, 4 hours straight. I listen to your voice, and I listen to the words and how deep they penetrate, and how through that sitting and sultry that it removes all that pain that I have dealt with the loss of a parent at a very young age, and just living, born and raised in Toronto, and I know the beaches very well. Just the water itself, just living and walking in nature, and it is so precious. And I thank you for your beautiful words today.
Thank you so much. We're good?
I'd just like to say that I too had to make a decision to love my world and to believe that all is well. And what I learned from changing my mind on that was I learned how to stand for what I believe in rather than standing against what I wanted to see changed. And by standing for, I gave it so much energy and so much power that I thought I had done it.
Yeah. The thing that I always say, it's coming to my heart to say it too right now, is that I always was shown, quite frankly, that, and this is right from God, is that God has walked every day before you so you get to be free. This is my mantra, and I live by it. This was my mantra when my mom was very sick and almost died in the hospital. It was my mantra every single day, because we want things to be a certain way. All of us do, but if we don't realize that God is already taking care of everything, we really can't. So that's the way I deal with things like that. So, and it's scary to,
My mantra is stop watching the news.
It's a good one.
Right, everybody knows me, knows that.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so,
I said one thing.
yes.
108 is a very sacred number,
It is.
and sacred in a lot of different ways, and a lot of different
Yes, Jain religion has 108.
108 is very sacred.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that said, we're good to, I'm going to carry on. We're good? Yeah? Okay. I'm glad that we had a moment together though, because I think that that's what that flow is about, right? So I honor this beautifully. So what I'm going to sing next is, let me do thank you, because I think that this is a good time to say thank you. Okay.
Back at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Literally.
This world is changing again. Oh, this world will fall because this world is destined to be beautiful, because this world is not gonna wait any longer. Because this world is gonna be good, so good this time. Because this time love has come for everyone. Because this time love shall be done for everyone. I want to thank you for being here with your heart. I want to say thank you for being all the love that you are. I want to say thank you, my angel. I want to say thank you to Operator for reminding me I'm a miracle just like you. I want to say thank you to the good Lord for being all that you are. I want to say thank you to Corey for being my glory. And if you
So that's thank you. Okay, so now that we've done this, I'm going to end with a song that I think it really sums up today. I do want to just mention to you before I sing this last song, I'm having an event in Toronto. I've sort of given you a little bit of a shortened version of that. And what I love about sort of the space of synchronicity, let's call it, is that when you put love out into the world, it comes back to you. And so I've met, I just want to share with you, do any of you know Lisa Listen? So she's the president of FedEx Canada. One of the things that I started to do was I used to reach out to people sort of not knowing what I was doing at the time, but she was on Undercover Bosses. She has a very amazing story. Her husband was actually, well, he died essentially because of a heart attack, I will say that. And she was on Undercover Bosses, and she went undercover to basically go and figure out sort of some things that were wrong, basically with FedEx Canada. And I watched this show, and it was on OWN. This is where I saw it again. And it was filmed in 2011, the show. And what's interesting is she went out and she found people that had been suffering, essentially, and she helped them to thrive. And she rewarded them for the amazing work that they do, just being everyday people in FedEx. And I love this because she wrote this book to sort of illustrate that she runs FedEx really with a golden rule. She's quite spiritual. And she, you know, has 8,000 employees. I just had lunch with her actually 2 days ago in Toronto, and she's been a huge advocate for me doing what I do. And I think that as we sort of become more conscious, we also must say and acknowledge that corporations are becoming more conscious, and that they have to, by the way. And I think that this woman is sort of leading sort of a very big company with consciousness in a way that I don't, in my experience in the corporate world, haven't really seen. So I decided to do an event with her, and she was so beautiful to agree to do this next weekend. So this is in Toronto. She's going to be speaking. And she's just a beautiful human being that I love very much. She has 4 children. She had 4 children when her husband died. He was 38 when he had his heart attack. And she shares that story in this book and how she basically became the president of FedEx Canada. I also met this woman, and again, through my music is how I met her. I also met this woman at a retreat I was at from a radio show I was on in the States. Her name is Lisa Luckett. Her husband was killed on the 105th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. She taught me something because I remember when I first met her, I thought that she was loud. I had a little bit of a judgment about that. I'll be very, very honest with you. And I've told her this as well, so I feel very comfortable saying this. I thought she was loud. And I wanted to share with you how the universe put her into my life. She was at this retreat for 4 days in the middle of nowhere, pretty much, in New York State on the Catskill Mountains, 400-acre property that I was invited to with a lot of other people. And this was the first year that I went. I was allowed to bring someone, so I flew someone someone flew to Canada from Cyprus that was my guest, my +1, and we drove there. And I met her on the first day, and in this workshop, one of the first workshops I've ever sort of done where you're sort of in this big group of about 100 people, we all had to break apart into small little groups and share our story of something that changed us, and I shared my father's suicide. And everybody at the table went through their story, right? So my 3 minutes was to share what happened to me and share what I've done about it and why I was sort of at this retreat. And what's so cool is that we then went back into the big group from these separate groups where we all shared our little stories with each other. And the leader of the exercise said, I want each person that was at each table to take their hand and just go rest it on the person that had the most beautiful story. I was chosen from my group, Lisa was chosen from her group, and all of the people that were chosen from the groups had to go to the front of the stage and then share it with the big group. So the first story I heard from that was this woman, Lisa, and I didn't know that her husband was killed in 9/11 until she shared her story, and it was a humble, humiliating moment for myself to think of why I judged this woman. And it was a great lesson to me to not judge people. And I think we don't know what people go through until we actually hear their story. So she's become a very good friend of mine, and I'm very grateful that she's agreed to fly from New Jersey to share her story at my event in Toronto with Lisa and myself. And I'm also flying in another friend of mine, Trudy Divendal, who's a 3-time Olympian. I met her actually in Spain, and she won in 1988 the silver medal at Calgary Olympics in Canada. She's from Norway. She lives in Oslo, and she's also the world champion skier as well for Norway. And she's an amazing woman that understands. She won the Olympics through energy. So that's what we're doing, and I'm singing. So that's next weekend in Toronto, and it's called Voices of Consciousness. So this dream manifesting has been a long time coming, so that is sort of a big deal next weekend for me, which is why I decided to do this today. So anyways, if you wanted to get tickets for it, you go to my website is BeKindness, so beekindness.com, and you can just click on the link. It's $77 to come, just so you know. So I'm going to sing next this time. Actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to sing Do You Know to end this today. And I think this is a good one. These are the things that I've learned in my life after all these years, 42 years of living life.
Do you know that the stars shine just for you? Do you know that your soul is forever? Do you know that your heart will always guide you home? Because you are a spark of all that is and all that will ever be. Because you are a part of the great mystery, like the sun, the moon, and the stars above. You are made of love. Do you know there's a secret garden inside you? And do you know that the universe will always love you? And do you know you're a piece of heaven? Because you are a spark of all that is and all that will ever be. Because you are a part of the great mystery, like the sun, the moon, and the stars above. You are made of love. like the sun, the moon, and the stars above. You are made of love.
Perfect. Beautiful. So that is me, I think, today. And we're at 128, so I think that's good. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. So beautiful. Thank you.
Get your tickets. Get your tickets.
Yes, I'm glad you said that.
There's still one mic. Yeah. I just found it. I just threw the batteries up. Beautiful.